In this paths demo, I want to show you one more complicated way of using paths in order to make selections. So I will go to File and Open. And in my main Photoshop folder, I will go to Chapter 10 and Folder 10.3. I have two files in here. I'm going to start down below and drag over both of them and open them. So here is the original frame with the photo behind glass. And the problem is when I took a photograph of this, you can see the outline of my reflection right across this photo. This part of the photo is dark. This part is all washed out from the glare of the glass. I don't want it on this table. And that's a pretty complicated frame. So what I did is I spent the time doing a tracing around this. So you can see right down here, next to my channels is my paths. Okay, and you can see I have inside paths where I traced all the little openings and the main opening of the frame itself. And then I also have outside path. So a Photoshop file can have multiple paths, okay? One for the outer edge, one for all the inner details. So if I look at this photo, it's totally crooked, but it's a good scan. I took it out of the frame, got a nice clean scan of it. I want this photo inside this picture frame. So I could do a totally different background if I wanted to, but I would at least get rid of the glare on that photo. So what I do is I go to my paths panel. I start on the outside path. I want to do just one big cutout of this frame. So on the paths panel pop-up, let me drag this out so you can see this. Go right there. On the outside path, I go to the pop-up and I make a selection around the frame. Now this is a nice hard edge metal frame. So the feather or the blur will be 0. I want this to have a nice clean cut look like I cut it out with a pair of scissors. So I'll click OK. And then all I have to do to duplicate the selected frame is go to my keyboard, and on a Mac, I hit Command J to jump to another layer. On a PC, that would be Control and J. So now if I came down to the original photo with the tabletop and I turn that eyeball off, the top layer is a nice clean cutout of the frame, but we still have all the openings to deal with. So that's where I switch to my inside paths. I had one for the very outer edge, one for all the openings inside. And I'll just repeat those steps again. Go to the pop-up menu on my paths panel, make another selection. 0 for the feather, I want hard, clean edges. And now on my Mac, I hit delete. On my PC, I would hit backspace. I'm on the top layer. That's where the copy of the frame is. And now I've got a beautiful cutout frame. Command D on my Mac, Control D on a PC to deselect all of that. And what I also notice on this is that I have a hint of blue. I get all this reflected blue from probably coming in from the window when I set this on the table. And I don't want all that blue in this frame. So when you have a particular color like that, like this inset blue edge here, you go to Image menu, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. Blue is a hue. Saturation is how much of that. So instead of master, which means every color in this file, I'm going to go down to the cyans, light blues. And I'm going to take my saturation slider, drag it all the way to the left, desaturate that. And I can still see just a hint of blue here and there. So now, in addition to the cyans, I go to the blues. If there's any blue left in here, take it out. There we go. So now none of that blue is reflected in the frame. I get a little bit of an extra shade of yellow here. So I'm going to come up to the yellows and kind of desaturate some of that as well. And just kind of clean up the overall look of this frame. And I like that look. I'll click OK. So now I go to the other photo. I want to put this inside the picture frame, but it's obviously totally crooked. So here's a quick fix. I click once on my crop tool. I come right up here to the straighten level. I'll click on it. And right across the bottom edge of the photo, I'm going to click and drag and measure the angle of that photo right there. When I let go of the mouse, it's going to rotate it. I'll just hit enter on my PC or return on the Mac. And now what I do, now that I've got it standing totally upright, image menu, image rotation, counterclockwise. And now we'll just rotate it into place. So now when I go back to my crop tool, it's as simple as dragging the edges. And what I want to do is add a little bit of extra white space here. Okay, I don't want to try to crop right to the edge. I'm going to add just a little bit of extra space like that. You can see the top edge of the photo was a little bit off, and we'll bring that down just a little bit more right in there. I hit enter on my PC or return on my Mac. And now when I go to my move tool, I'll click and drag this all the way up. Wait a second, drag it back in and then let go. Drag and drop. And I want to tuck that photo obviously under the frame. So I'm going to put that photo underneath that layer. You can see how the photo just slides right up underneath. So I'm going to look at this upper left corner and just slide it just a little bit past the edge right there. Hit Command T on my Mac. That's Control T on a PC. And now I can click and drag slightly past the corner. I can see the top was a little crooked, so I go outside and I can rotate the photo a little bit. Kind of like that. So I see about the same amount of space across the top there. That's perfect. And now I just pull that corner out a little bit more. Pull that out a little bit more. Anytime you want to fill a space, your photo should be slightly larger than that entire space, like that. Now I hit enter on my PC or return on my Mac. I've set the photo into the frame. And now on this bottom layer, I'll just throw that in the trash. That was the original photo that I don't need. I will create one more brand new layer and drag it to the bottom. D for default colors. On my Mac, Option key and the big delete key to fill with the current foreground color. That will be Alt and backspace on your PC. So now I've got a nice inset frame, inset photo. It's looking good in this frame. I think the photo looks a little bit too yellow. So I click on the photo. Image menu, adjustments, hue and saturation. I'm going to go to the bottom right and click colorize. I'll take the hue slider because default is red. I'll pull it to kind of a reddish brown right there. And then I just desaturate that until I get a nice warm gray tone right there. Here's before when I turn off preview. It's looking very kind of yellowish green. Here's after. And that looks a little more realistic. And I click OK. So that's how you can use paths. Complicated objects, complicated paths. One for the outer edge, and then I did a separate one for all the inside elements. And you can get a nice, clean representation of your photo that looks a little more authentic. So I'll go to File, Save a Copy, And we'll just call that framed picture. So last name, first name, framed photo or framed picture. Always save your files as a JPEG, always on your desktop, and always 8 or high quality. And there's complicated paths for you here in Adobe Photoshop.